Hey out there, my name's Bo Rogers. I'm here with Thomas Broadus from the Infinity Marketing team, and we are sharing some updates about Google and some recent ad policies. Thomas, I want you to tell us a little bit, get us kicked off here as we take about 15 minutes to talk through this. What's going on?
Yeah, so last year there was some issues that arose at Facebook around targeting around specific industries, and they defined these industries as HEC industries. So housing, employment, and credit. So anything to do with housing, either rental or purchasing, even apartment dwellings, employment, anything dealing with recruitment sites, companies that are recruiting, anything to do with hiring, and then finally in credit, anything that would issue a credit, whether that's short-term loans, mortgages, home loans, car loans, boat loans, whatever you can imagine, had some specific rules applied to them by Facebook for some pretty good reasons to protect some classes of people that were having issues or could use discriminating targeting within the platform to exclude people from things that could really benefit their lives, which when you think about it, housing, employment, and credit are pretty vital in a lot of different ways.
Yep. Well, three specific categories, Thomas. Facebook did this a year ago about last
Yeah.
October. Now Google's following suit. So why now? Why is this going on?
Yeah, well, we just got the email from Google this week, but we feel like it's important, probably getting ready for the end of the year and trying to be proactive. Facebook's changes were really driven because of lawsuits. Some organizations got together to do some empowerment for those, again, those classes that have been discriminated against. Seems like Google's getting out in front of it, even though it's been a year. They want to ensure that those changes are in place. People can run quality ads and make sure that everything that they need to run can be done in a really protected and smart way.
Yep, and not too long ago, I know you and I talked about it a good bit. Capitol Hill, the government brought up Facebook, Google, Apple, Amazon, all the executives,
Yeah.
right? You had Congress grilling them, and so there's been a lot of attention in the tech space, and these adjustments are being made. They're looking to stay ahead of the curve because they don't want to deal with the situation, as you said, like Facebook dealt with, and there's some repercussions and some slaps on the wrist, hefty fines, but
Yeah.
still perhaps looking to stay ahead of that.
Well, and in our language too. So when we educated all of our clients last year about the Facebook changes, one of the things that we talked often about, or what we got asked, is like, well, what about Google? And our answer was like, well, right now, right, that's not applied to Google. Could it be in the future? Yes, and we'll be adaptive and ready for that. And lo and behold, this week, here we go. So we've had some good experience. We were able to really develop some quality timelines for our clients in the Facebook and the social space. And now we're preparing to do the same thing for the Google ad space.
So with this happening, what do we need to know? What is the audience that's out there watching this right now? What are we talking to our clients about? What is important to be aware of?
Well, here's the big ideas around what's happening. With Facebook, when these changes, we had a pretty good amount of time. We had months to get ready. With Google, you're not. So October 19th is their day to say, hey, you've got to be in full compliance of these new HEC rules, or some bad things can happen to your account, especially if you're using that account and it's vital to what's driving business for you. So let's talk about what these rules are within the Google space. What they mean for the HEC ads is when I'm running an ad in Google, I have a lot of targeting capabilities with my first party targeting opportunities. And that just means all the data that Google has about users that advertisers or brands or companies or businesses can have access to through the Google Ads platform. So within this category, you're going to lose some specific targeting. So I'm going to look over the email that they sent us. It's going to be gender, it's going to be age, it's going to be parental status, marital status, and zip code. So if you're using any of those targeting tools right now to identify people, even if it's a high converting campaign for you, you're going to lose that as of October 19th. So when those comes into play, then those things are just going to evaporate. If you're still running ads, those ads can be discontinued. They could just be turned off or declined that day. But there could be a gap if you're not prepared and actually what you're waiting on for your results.
So I'm looking at the same document that you're looking at. Another thing that I'll call out, a few things also to know if this affects you in the categories that you're in.
Yep.
Impacted advertisers, looks like a notification is going to be received in your Google Ads account, and it's going to prompt you to acknowledge these policy changes. So there's going to be a heads up. It's not like it's going to happen without communication. So you will need to agree to these changes and then comply also with relevant local laws. So there'll be notification. But then also know that if for some reason you, your partners, your internal team, you miss this, and you haven't accepted these changes when the policy goes into place, that's on, again, October 19th of this year, that you're going to be unable to create any new campaigns until you accept.
Yeah.
So this could really interrupt campaigns that might be out there right now if you don't act.
Yeah, and because this information is so new, Bo, this is important because we also don't know. Maybe all I do is, you know what, I sell soap. Soap is huge online. I sell organic, homemade soaps and bath bombs and all that fun stuff. Well, Google sends those mass notifications to generally all accounts when there's a big new term of service agreement change. So it can impact my soap online if I don't go ahead and agree and acknowledge that I realize these changes are going to happen. For Facebook, we saw it on not just HEC accounts, but all accounts have to agree that either I am running in this category or I am not. It's not a passive thing. I have to do that. So we could see the same action here, which means it's going to impact everybody running an ad right now, including some e-commerce stuff, not just within that HEC grouping.
Anything else that you call out just as an important need to know before we move on to what's next?
Yeah, a couple things is one is sometimes when we create, especially if I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a small business and I've been managing these ads on my own, I need to be sure to log into my account, just like you said, look at the email. They should have the email just like what we have in their inbox. So sometimes it's a special Gmail account they've set up just to do their AdWords or whatever their campaigns are. Be sure to find it. Go in and look. That information's out there. If you have questions about it or want to see the full copy of that email and you don't have it, just reach out to us. Drop something in the comments. We would love to be able to share that with you so you can see the exact copy that Google shared. We'll also include it in the blog. So in the blog for this video, you'll be able to find it right there and even download it if you'd like to. So,
Yeah, totally agree, Thomas. My last thought would be, I just chatted it to you. Let's definitely include this in the blog and maybe even in the post as well. But it's a frequently asked question page for HEC. And one thing, right? No, if you are affected, but hey, you might not be affected. For example, hotels and vacation rentals may not have targeting restrictions. Office buildings and office space rentals, home design services, property management. So there's some great information here as well that we can share out. But so as we go and we get educated and equipped as marketers, what do we now need to do? It's affecting us. What do I now go do? What's my next steps to adjust to this new normal from an HEC advertiser perspective?
Yeah. Well, we talked about one of the big things, which is be sure to pay attention to your account. And when an acknowledgement comes through that you have to acknowledge these changes, be sure to do that because that could impact your account from a top level, which means you won't be able to do anything or create anything or make any edits or changes, and you'll have to go through a reapproval process. So when you see the notification from Google come through, be sure to accept it. Secondly, review your targeting. If you are in one of these HEC categories, go ahead and review your targeting to see, I've acknowledged that I'm in this category, but maybe I'm not using any of these specific things. There's a really good chance you're using zip code or some location targeting, so we feel it will impact you. But maybe you're not using gender, or maybe you're not using age or marital status or parental status. So you may not be using those, but zip code is probably how you're doing a lot of location-based targeting. So check that. And what alternatives do you have for zip code? Can you go by county in Google? Yes. Can you go by state? Can you go by multiple areas? You can still do lots of different things in the geographic targeting for Google, just not by zip code. So go ahead and plan for that and make sure your ads are adoption ready. That's going to be the big key because that's going to prepare you for everything else that could happen to your ads. And then lastly, pay attention. So generally when we see a flux like this or a big change, especially a quick one, coming up now in less than 2 months between October 19th and where we are today, what's going to happen after that? Machine learning, are these things going to be auto turned off or auto checked for HEC? You know, there's going to be so many ads, it's really hard to say it's going to be a person behind the screen that's checking those things. So monitor it daily, especially that first week or so, to make sure you don't get any ads caught in a filter later. Because what you don't want to do is feel good, have responded and everything you need to, and then because of a glitch or a computer check, then that ad gets turned off. That's going to mess with your budget. It's going to mess with your pacing spend to the end of the month. All those things can come into play.
I'm also seeing some information similar, right? Know what you're going to lose, but also know what remains. Household income seems, as of right now, to still be not a restricted, targeted category.
Yeah.
Homeowner status, education level,
Yeah.
life events. So there's a few things that'll stay in place. So just as you mentioned, what will be affected. Also have a good grasp of how might I need to compensate and maybe use some parameters, filters that I haven't used previously to reach my target audience.
Yeah. And then the other thing that we're not seeing yet, if you're running full Google ads, through the GDN or maybe even on YouTube, is we haven't seen some of the things that Facebook put in place, which would be around your email targeting opportunities. We're not seeing yet how that lookalike audience or that custom audience is being impacted from Google's implementation of the HEC ads. But is it something that we could see? Absolutely. And that would be a big piece that the two aren't kind of agreeing on, is how do we use emails and how much of that can we actually target?
So we know now that if I'm in an a housing, an employment, or a credit category, I'm met with the same criteria and the challenges. Facebook, Google. What are we recommending clients do and explore? Perhaps there's avenues outside of Facebook or Google that could be explored that might right now not be restricted in this way. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so two big ones. One is, what are you investing in your organic search engine opportunities? So make sure that your organic is good, your content is good. That SEO is really the way that the search engines lead people to your website the majority of the time. So invest some opportunity in there. You telling clear messages, direct messages, being the right answer to somebody's question online. And then look at your other programmatic opportunities. Invest heavily right now. We're seeing some great growth and really great returns in the video capabilities of OTT, that over the top, that's going to be your Sling, Direct TV, all those things on the digital space, and then in your CTV space. So what can you do digitally from that point of view, as well as your really strong programmatic tracking opportunities, which don't seem to be impacted yet?
Yeah, I really like what you're saying there on both fronts. Search, paid to a lesser extent, but definitely organic for long-term opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
and then programmatic that has not had this. If you're using a demand side platform, a DSP, leveraging. Google has a product out there. Trade Desk we leverage. Media Math. There's several others, but
Yeah.
has not affected that space. The other thing that I throw out there is this idea of first-party data, and if you have current customer data, you can very much leverage that in many different categories, but it can be leveraged to probably a hyper-targeted extent, more so than any other platform, through a DSP like the Trade Desk. But we're having a lot of success where we take books of business. You really need an email address and a zip code, and we're now able to model those audiences and find others that look like your best, most desirable customer, and
Yeah.
go out there and reach them, just as you mentioned, through channels like connected TV, digital video, streaming audio, channels that are experiencing growth since we're now in this post-COVID digital accelerated environment. So we're seeing a lot of opportunity there, and I imagine that'll be one of the areas that we'll be consulting our clients in.
Yeah, absolutely. But we're seeing it work together. We went through this last year. We're kind of really good at educating our clients on how to make those changes. So we weren't caught unaware about anything, which really prepared us this year for a much shorter timeline in 2 months. So I feel like we'll be in a good spot. And if you're a small business or an entrepreneur or a medium-sized business, now is the time to make some changes. You can't sit back and wait because you do only have so many days between now and that October 19th. So make a plan. We would love to talk to you if you have some questions, or we can provide some support. We are a Google Premier partner, so we have direct access to a Google team that supports us in a lot of different ways. And that helps keep us kind of on top of a lot of these changes. So our team, I'm sure, is excited, ready to go. We're going to be diving through a lot of accounts to understand exactly, what do we need to change, how do we need to adapt, and what's going to happen with our targeting, and how do we circumvent that. It's going to be organic, and it's going to be CTV and programmatic. I mean, that's exactly what we'd advise our clients, no doubt.
Yep, and I like, as we wrap up here, the idea that awareness, is a big part of it. Educating yourself, building out preparation, and then going and executing. So if I'm a marketer right now, if I'm small, medium-sized business or a larger corporation, I'm definitely getting with my digital team internally or my agency. I'm asking what campaigns are affected. Where are we identifying challenges upcoming in the near future? What are our options? Where do we shift dollars? Maybe even anticipating how performance might adjust. Go ahead and be preparing for some test campaigns sometime after the 19th, right, of October. Is that right,
Yeah.
Thomas?
Yep,
October
19th
19th.
October.
So you got a couple of months, but yeah, go ahead and be pulling people together. Awareness, education, preparation, execution. So with that, feel free to check out the links, comment, engage. Would love to hear anything that anybody's got out there. Any questions, reach out to us directly. And Thomas, appreciate your time getting together and talking about HEC for Google that'll be affecting us here in the coming months.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Bo.